up, I might lean on. I can't just lean on faith. Tell me what the fuck I gotta take to escape. So much pain inside, you can see it on my face. Hold a nigga down when I go MIA. Cruising down the interstate, Papa Sarah to take the pen away. My nigga baby find another way. So much shit I wanna say. I wanna see a drop, I fuck the cake. Sending on my killers, they ain't never late.
Street out here, make sure you wake up. It's out here, bro. You can make sure you wake up.
If you're not short in futures right now, I don't know what you're doing. We have a little bit more to go down here. Crazy sell-off, crazy pulling back, crazy stuff here. All right, where we at? All right, guys, let's get it going. Yeah, I mean, major red here we're seeing overnight. Kind of kicking off the week here, pretty massive gap down for futures and SPY and QQ. And we're just kind of pulling down here until we can find a demand where it's going to bounce. And we kind of expected this. We expected, likely we're going to see some red into Monday. One thing I did do is I swung on Friday Exxon calls. We're looking at oil companies. And this is probably going to be some names we're going to be pressing here. As you can see, Exxon is up about $5, gapping up here. Beautiful. Valero is up $9 here. Chevron up $6. Some of these names that I'm going to be pressing, the energy sector here, likely going or oil, at least oil going into this next week. It's probably going to be a little bit easier to be trading, than SPY and QQ, because as we're seeing now, SPY and Q's down $13. SPY's down 12.5. It's going to be easier to trade as far as like the contracts go. It's going to be a little bit tougher, I would say, just, having to deal with that. So I would say, if anything, kind of look for around the market where you can kind of, get in and fit in and understand kind of where you're at on the levels, right? IWM might be a little bit easier as well. Played puts on that Friday. Should have swung into it because down $8 is pretty crazy. But yeah, so we're going to be looking at that. So let's kind of get into it on the game plans as far as maybe that, right? So I streamed yesterday and I pretty much charted Valero from scratch, because these names we're going to be watching here. And so it's at 233. So it's sitting right at breakout level, which was, exactly what we kind of wanted, right? Right here, if it opens up here tomorrow, which it should, it's going to be looking to run to 235, 238 into the week. Again, it's very possible that, it's creating these huge daily gaps. Maybe they try to come down and take those gaps out. We got to be careful for that. And same thing for SPY and QQ, right? I'm not going to be looking to jump on juiced, puts at open. I'm going to be looking to see kind of what happens. And, ironically, the better RR is going to be playing some cheap calls, but I'm probably not going to be even looking to do that because we're too sold off here, right? Even if it's going to be a brief bounce, the smarter move is just shorting that kind of rainbow midday kind of push, knowing that we're just going to come right back down. So that's one way to kind of do things. I think that's probably the better. Don't fight the trend, and that's sticking with the trend. So I would say definitely, definitely stick with that as far as that game plan. But if you're bold and, living on the risky side, I would say you can definitely go for, probably trying to play some risky calls as everything's kind of crushed and kind of, wait for that move kind of maybe back into range as we are, creating those daily gaps. So that's it's a big one. It's definitely a big one to be kind of keeping an eye on. So I would say keep an eye on that. QQ under 600 is just going to be is going to be bearish. It's going to be bearish as long as we stay under 600, right? We closed perfectly under it on Friday, perfectly under it. And notice how we're selling off here. So anything under 600 is going to be bearish for QQ. Look for that, right? Look for, maybe popping up and shorting, any pops, anything under 600. That's what I'm going to be looking for. So anything under 600, I know that, bears are in control, and we will continue to kind of ride with them until, things change. And for SPY, 680 is the, number to stay under, 680. which, we are definitely under that. And the next move down is going to be around 660, which is, I'm going off purple levels. I have a lot of, recap zones, and I'm going to be playing the zones. But the next major purple level, which 680 was the last purple level, is going to be 662, 661, 78. So notice how we're literally right under it right now, or right kind of near it. Purple levels for me is, these are just major levels in the market that, SPY or QQ usually run to. These are levels that bulls and bears kind of agree on. So things get a little bit crazy as far as those levels, especially if we close near them, at them, and something like that happens. So those game plans are set for members for SPY and QQ. To be honest, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to kind of trade that with us gapping down. Gap down days are a lot harder. So one thing I do is I look around the market a little bit. Where can I get in? Where could I fit in? Where could I, play some probably easier plays, right? And we're seeing, oil rip right here. And it's very possible we're just going to see oil run into the week here, as some of these names are hitting all-time highs, some of these oil companies. So, it's very possible they just keep it pushing pretty hard, especially with, oil inventories being attacked overseas, and, Middle East and all that is, it's just going to drive the demand up, or at least the price up. And that's going to be probably the craziest thing. USO puts, what is USO? What is that? USO. Oh, United States oil. Why do I not? Oh yeah, 2020. I look how low that volume is though. Hold on. What are the contracts looking at? Not bad, not bad, not bad. A little bit of juice, but not bad. Yeah, I mean, pretty juice, but again, one of these names you gotta just pick and run with it. But buying shares of this on a move up like that, not bad at all. It's creating these pretty big daily gaps as well. That's the only thing that's kind of scaring me. I don't like how we're gonna keep gapping, and then it's just like gold. Like it keeps going, gap, and then when the music shuts off, you better hope you're not playing calls that open that day, and you better hope you're not holding the bag, because they're gonna start pulling it straight down. So yeah, I mean, pick your favorite oil name and go for it. I think that's a really good look. Looks like Lockheed Martin is up $18 here. So defense, Boeing down. No one really cares about Boeing there, but yeah, I mean, looking across my watch list is really fast. Everything overnight, a lot of tech, some retail, whatever. A lot of it is going to be red overnight, because a lot of this is going to be affected with inflation, right? So that's probably going to be the bigger thing, right? We have CPI data. Market's going to be waiting on that. Market's going to be kind of, scared on that, because if oil shoots up like this, that's just going to raise inflation, or that's just going to put a strain on, not getting any rate cuts, which is, the market's not going to like that. And of course, we're right back to where we started, and all this progress that we've made, and lies about, the job reports and all that. It's just, yeah, we're not really in a good position economically if we really look at the numbers, obviously, but they do a really good job of trying to lie to us. And there's some brief moments where I'm like, you know what, I think we're in a pretty normal economical state. And then I go to the grocery store, and I look at gas and everything, and I live in Texas, so I mean, it's relatively cheap here, cheaper, I guess, than really any other major cities. But again, I would assume everyone else is feeling it just as well. If I'm like, yeah, this is, pretty crazy. So again, the fight continues. To be honest, I really don't see any of us or any of this being fixed as far as inflation, unless we really we need to crash. Like we need things to really pull down. We need things to rebalance. We need things to, fail, and let the cards fall, let the chips go, and wherever it lands is, where we go from there. And that's probably what we need. But I honestly believe we're not going to see that until the next administration. So we still have a lot of time, until then. And until then, it's going to be a fight on this. It's going to be like a hard fight on the move up. Like it's going to be a move up, but just, I would say when it comes to your personal lives, and this is what, something that I'm doing, I'm not even going to care. I'm not even going to care. As long as you're not in a position of where you're maybe over leveraged in a situation, I would say keep doing you, keep going, and maybe in the back of mind, keep some reserves just in case that around that time when, presidential elections and things come up, then you can have a reserve to deploy when, it's very much time, but don't let that hold you back as well. Don't let that hold you back and say, oh, okay, the better opportunities are coming in 2 years, 3 years, whatever. Technically, we still don't know because anything could happen in the future, but I would say, live your life, do your thing. And when that time comes, make sure you do have something ready to go because, I could have easily, and I'm so mad, but this time last year, I could have easily really longed that dip harder than I did, with a lot of my net worth. And to be honest, I, just tied up cash, buying another property and other things. And that was great. That's fine. And all that, make a gain on that. That's cool. Love that. It's just, sure, maybe I could have made a bigger gain, going with stocks instead of other things or other assets, whatever. Who cares? But I don't want to keep making that mistake because I still believe stocks are still easily the number one vehicle to really make the most wealth, make the most money. Just as far as effort goes and things like that, it's probably pretty effortlessly when you time it decently right with enough capital and just sit back. It really don't get too much easier than that, to be honest, other than, take the ride and don't do nothing crazy. So that's something I'm looking forward to. So FOMC, right? Or CPI, right? We have, things this week that are really going to play into inflation and the data with that. And I think the market's really going to be forward looking for that. Possibly Monday is going to be a lot tougher to play with tech or big, indexes and things like that. That's why I say oil is going to be my number one. Possibly IWM. Let's see what kind of small caps do. Maybe trade some futures on that and maybe kind of sit back on some of the options until we know we're going to maybe eat some of the gap back up or do something like that. Those are guarantees, right? Those are definite guarantees. One of the, monster wins we won on this past week was Amazon, right? And we played that breakout pretty nicely where we went into a daily gap, which was the earnings gap, and we ate that to 220. So from like 205 here on that break, the first position I took on Amazon, I alerted it. It was the MacBook challenge. I alerted it for you guys for free, but also it was a members play. Y'all just got the inside of that. And those calls went over 1,000%, right? It was 210 strike and we hit 220, 48 hours later. We played 4 different strikes on the roll up and banked all the way up to 220 where it perfectly filled. And then we sat back and did not touch it, right? Because Friday, I think it just sold off. Yeah. So, I mean, again, daily gaps are a real thing and those are fun to play when you kind of, know when to go and when to sit back and things like that. So, some of these names, I think I'm going to probably chart a little bit more on this. Chevron, right? Valero, we did our thing on that. Exxon, we did our thing on that. I'm going to be watching Exxon, Valero probably most. Chevron, I think I don't know. I have to look at these contracts. Contracts are not too bad. Yeah, they're not bad at all. 197. Yeah, honestly, they're not bad at all. They're not bad at all. But, Valero, Exxon, Chevron, I don't think I'm going to be looking at anything else. Those 3, those are my favorite to trade when I get around to it. And, they move pretty well. So I'm going to be looking at that as well. So good stuff, guys. Good stuff. All right. Yeah. So it's going to, I think that's just what I'm going to do. Like sometimes I make that mistake of, trying to force a trade on SPY and QQ on a major gap down, right? If it's not a major gap down where we're $6 down, $5 down, we've seen us gap down and just eat that gap right back up, right? On the 3rd here, just a few days ago, we gapped down and then they brought it all the way back up and we filled it, going into that same day, next day kind of thing. We've been seeing that. I'm not going to say it's going to happen tomorrow. I think we open up $10 down, $12 down. It's very rare. And I'm talking rare that we will see us fill that all the way back up. Like it's extremely rare. I've seen it before, but it's like they got to open it at open. Buyers would have to aggressively step in all day, like all day. The moment we open and go. So that's one thing you need to be looking for. If it starts to kind of chop and do kind of nothing like we saw Friday, again, I'm not going to be looking to be touching SPY QQ, maybe some shares, maybe, but you already know the names I'm going to be turning to, kind of looking around the market and just kind of, sitting back and, really looking for our shots here. It's going to be a little bit more difficult on Monday, but going into the week should be fairly easy, right? Especially if, some of these, I would look for smaller names, right? I would look for smaller names, other decent setups that you're already kind of eyeing, right? Intel's only down $1.70. It's not foreign to, gapping down, holding, and then eating its gap right back up. We already saw that last week, creating a daily gap and pushing back up, especially if it's kind of holding, a zone or a demand or something like that. Or get on the daily and just kind of look for, maybe some daily gaps. Anywhere where, you could see kind of a move kind of playing out there. And yeah, we will see about that. We will definitely see about that. So yeah, let's see if Intel kind of gets back down to that 40 range, or if it kind of closes that daily gap right back up. Again, smaller names I would probably be a little bit easier on than going SPY QQ, as they're already down 10, 12, $13. So you don't want to be caught, just, I guess, trying to do that when there might be simpler plays to just kind of sit back and really go for, right? And that's one thing I did this past week, that, how we won nonstop at open. Sure, I'm the king of the open. Sure, I'm banking at open, but there are plenty times where, this past week where I was like, all right, guys, I'm just going to be very careful at open. And maybe 10 minutes went by, and then I see the clarity and I'm like, all right, let's go. Right. Maybe 5 minutes goes by, maybe 20 minutes goes by, at most 30 minutes goes by. And, if by 30 minutes, if I'm not in a play and we're not already banking, then there's literally no play to make at open. And it's going to be a midday play or end of day play or whatever. So that's why I say, if you're a member, I do trade live. Top members get all my live sessions. Members do get, my live sessions, but, here and there, I'm going to be trading live for members, all members tomorrow, possibly during the week, depending on how tough this, this price action is, because, I really want y'all to be hearing my thoughts, and, it's really easy for y'all to listen to me and my thoughts going into this. Be like, hey, I'm seeing this. Let's wait. Hold on. I'm looking at this. All right, this is looking good. Hold on. We're eyeing a couple names here. Let's see. All right, this is breaking out. All right, I'm jumping these contracts, getting filled at this strike, this price, and then of course, the alert also goes out in the Discord. And then you can, just ride with me live. Like, all right, we're up 20%, 30%, 50%, 60%, 100%, trim here, stops above buy, or we're eating the full gap, boom, sell all, like we killed it, stuff like that. So that's always a good time. Think about that if you want to be a part of that. Again, I would say this is where, a lot of people are going to start really, really, I would say not sinking or swimming. It's just, we're back at it. We're right back to it. March, April, like this is just on cue from last year, and we're back. Just know that, some of this redness here that we're going to be seeing is just going to be generational, probably dippage going into the year, to be honest. So I'm going to keep that in mind, and possibly, if we start seeing a little bit more selling off, where I'm like, all right, this is, the more SPY gets away from that 700 level, right? It's at 60 right now. The more we get closer, maybe 650, maybe 640, I know that there's going to be some opportunity there regardless. Even if we keep pulling down, then, beautiful. But again, Q was at 636 at some of the high, all-time highs, and it's at, 585 right now. These are starting to turn into some decent dips that you really could start kind of loading up on, sitting back and doing less into the year. So definitely something I'm going to be kind of eyeing, keeping that in mind as well, keeping that in check. So keep an eye on that as well. If you want my trades, guys, wap.com/Rio Capital. I don't know if there's one. I think there's one code left. Use code March right now, save 50% off. I think there's one left. I don't know if it's still there or not. I think I announced that on Friday or whatever, but yeah. So again, to be honest, it's going to be easier just to press these oil names, especially if maybe we get a gap fill right back down, or maybe we gap and go. Regardless, that sounds pretty easy to be playing with these contracts, other than trying to touch juiced out SPY and QQ. If you're not already holding puts into, Monday here, then chasing it at open is going to be tough, right? Even if lottos, 1 days, whatever strike or whatever expiration is going to be, it's going to be juiced, and it's going to be a lot tougher. So let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. Yeah, I want to see them kind of get bounced around a little bit, even out the price, and then come in when there's a really good, I would say, setup. Maybe eating the gap back up, maybe zone to zone, real cap zone, maybe just kind of a little bit easier, midday stuff. I don't want to be slamming that at open like I usually do when things are juiced. So that's usually my rule. Even though I have before and we've banked on it before, I don't want to be tying up capital like that, especially when I know there's going to be a lot of good opportunities here. Sometimes you just got to wait, just a little bit after open. Sometimes they come Tuesday, Wednesday, and if you're already in a play and you're swinging and you have a bias and things like that, again, you'll miss it by just kind of having that bias and jumping in something when you really don't have to be, or you don't have to kind of tie up that capital where you just sit back and wait. So yeah. Anyways, we'll be cashing out some calls on these oil names tomorrow, and then looking to see, all right, is it dip time, or are we going to be slamming the dip, or are we going to be longing more, or what's the case, right? Is it a gap and go, or eat the gap back down? Regardless, so a lot of these names are right back or at like all-time highs. So I would assume we're going to move up pretty crazy. Exxon here is up about almost $5 here. At this 155, 156, we clear this 156. It's going to be just completely low volume straight to 160. So that's another like $4, $5 move. And I can show you kind of what I'm looking at here with volume profile. So volume profile, I like this indicator, kind of just shows, as you can see, a lot of volume down here, right? A lot of stacked orders all down here. There's a lot of support. As it starts getting higher, you can see that they'll start thinning out, because this is new all-time highs and not many orders were here at all, other than kind of that pull down here. So literally no order stacked here. If we open up at 156, which we're at right now, right up here, just know that likely if we hold, we're going to push to 159 plus. There's just no sellers up here to stop us. It's just going to move. Now, say we kind of come down into this area, then I might look for kind of a retest around 151, maybe scoop up some calls for that push, higher into the week. It's very possible that we do see, that move or, that continuation into the week. We might, it might be as easy as slamming calls at open on the dip or any type of dip on Monday for these oil companies, and it just rides into Friday. It might be as simple as that. I'm not saying it will. I'm just saying that's a possibility. And, you want to be leaving a runner. You want to be leaving something on the move up and just kind of pressing, right? If it's time to press, it's press. I like that. So we'll see kind of what happens there with that, honestly. We will see about that. Questions, let me know. Game plans are set. Everything looks good. I'm ready to ride, ready to rock and roll. Loving these setups on these individual names, and we will see what SPY QQ kind of do. But again, a lot of people see red. A lot of people see QQ down $13 here. I see opportunity. I see, a gap fill, a daily gap fill on the move back up. That's, when we get to it, is going to be massive. It's going to be an amazing move. It's going to be profitable. It's going to be a banger. It's going to be, again, winning stuff and guaranteed wins on that. So, I'm excited. I'm not going to be obviously opening up on Monday slamming calls. I'm going to be seeing, let's see if we can get a major support. Let's see if we can end up pushing out. And then once we start hitting that daily gap, then all right, are they going to start really rocking and rolling through it, or are we going to hit it and kind of turn around there? So that's another thing that I'm going to be watching as well. When we do hit that daily gap, is, we're going to hit it, or are we going to just rock and roll straight through it? Who knows? But game plans are set. Everything's set. Not too many good setups because a lot of shit is happening here overnight. Kind of let things kind of play out. We do have some individual names. You already know I'm watching oil and all that. We were going to be banking off calls that already wake up, cash out Monday, and we're going to turn around and look to see if we can slam some more, whether it's up or down. Regardless, we're going to be looking to press. If it's a gap fill down, then maybe I'll just not play it. Maybe we'll see. But I'm going to be looking for those dips. I'm going to be looking for the ride, back into the week. And I don't see us, I don't see those prices coming down this week, at least. If we ride up higher into it, then we'll be right there with it. If not, we'll see. We got SPY QQ, other names as well. Let's look at $9. Microsoft, Apple down $4. One thing I wanted to look for is, who's fighting the most here. Tesla down 10, AMD down, what is that, 7.5. I want to see who's fighting the most, right? Who's showing resilience here, all right? Meta down 16. I think Intel's down $1.50. QCOM 3.5. Really no resilience. Maybe Nvidia down $4. Everything else is down pretty much over $4 to $5, $9. Maybe Nvidia 173. It's dropping right down. Ooh, it has a gap at 172, 171. Nvidia right here at that demand. Man. I'll be eyeing that, especially if we go into this week. I was eyeing this like Thursday, Friday for that kind of structural break. You can see it right here. Watch right when I draw it. Something like this. There we go. Yeah, that structural break on Thursday, Friday ended up breaking down, coming into that 178. Looks good. We do have an open gap there at 172, 171. We'd have to stay under 176, 177. I would need to see us stay under that into the week and maybe take a knife to it. I don't know. We'll see. So we'll see about that, though. I again, just kind of look at strength and weakness, who's really weak, who's really not, and then, kind of go from there. So, yeah, we'll see about that. But we got some really, I say, good setups in other sectors. Tech, we got to let maybe cool off. If you're not already, rocking and rolling with puts, swinging into, Monday here, then it's going to be a little bit tougher to be chasing juiced up puts. Technically, the better RR will be playing dirt cheap calls. But I would say with us, and I have a rule, us being down over $10, I don't touch calls at all. I don't care. Unless we no, not even that. Because anytime we're down $10 and we push out at open and hit the gap, it's almost always we hit that gap and just reverse away. So you're actually better off shorting, any type of pops, any type of move up or anything like that. Unless buyers really step in aggressively and take out the gap. But, again, we're not. That's too much right now. It's very rare that we see them take out a $15 gap or $14 gap or $10 gap in that same day. So, but that gap is going to be there, right, above, and it's just back to Friday's levels or Friday's close, and it's possible we might see us hit some of it or make our way to it during the week, and that will be a time to play some calls. But for now, I'm not looking to front run or do anything like that as far as trying to play that. So when it's time, it's time. When it's not, you sit back, look for the better opportunities. So we got our opportunities set, ready to go, and locked and loaded. Don't miss my trades, guys, this week. You riding with me? Ride with me. Let's win. Let's make some money, baby. Every day of this past week, I'm always tweeting out my P&L. I'm always tweeting out, explosions at open, right? Explosions, just my portfolio just open, green, boom, rockets. That's how it goes. Keep the open, baby. Come bank with me. We had some really, really good plays last week. Amazon being obviously it, 4 different strikes, all going over 300%, with the first one going over 1,000%. So we had some good put plays as well on Q and SPY, some other good stuff. So yeah, let's see what we can do. First things first is we will be cashing out some oil calls at open on Monday and see if we can, see if it's a gap and go or if it's a gap fill. Regardless, we'll look for that dip and or maybe play the gap fill. Not, I'm ready to long more into the week on oil or press it. We'll see how it goes. We need a little bit more confirmation, but looks good to me. All right. Anyways, appreciate y'all showing up, guys. Let me know if y'all need anything. DM me on X if y'all need anything. If you're not following me on X, at Rigo Capital. Shout out to Twitter people. Shout out to YouTube and shout out to Twitch people. Appreciate y'all showing up. Let me know. Get my trades, wap.com/Rigo Capital. And if you want to learn more about Rigo Cap, you can. RigoCap.com. And I don't know if there's any more codes left to use March. I have no clue. You can try it, but 50% off if you want to try it out. So let me know if y'all need anything and have any questions about anything with me. So let's do this. Let's make our money. Let's go. Fresh new week, fresh new opportunities, big week ahead. TPI, economical news, unemployment data, core PCE, whatever the case may be, oil ripping. We got stuff. We got plays. We got things to do. All right, let's go.